Hello, this is Ms. DB. In this video, we're going to look at solving equations when you have to simplify first. And we've done a few of these this week already, but this worksheet is going to be focused on just more of those, more practice with those. So there's a couple examples on the worksheet that are already worked out, and I have all the steps listed that you would do in order to solve this. So I guess I'm going to rename this one as 3B. So the first step here is to add the like terms on the right side. So we have 28 equals, and then on this side we see there's an 8x minus 7x. You combine those and you get 1x. Then the second step would be to undo the plus 12, and you do that by subtracting 12 from both sides. Now when you do that, you're left with 1x. This is why this is really the same step. So you get 16 equals 1x, but that's the same as 16 equals 16 equals x. Now some people could divide both sides by 1 here, but you don't have to do that because dividing by 1 doesn't change the answer at all. Now the last step is checking your work. You should check your work on these equations on this worksheet to make sure that what you get works back in the original equation. So you see that there's quite a few problems on this worksheet. Some of them you need to simplify first, and some of them, like number 3, you can't simplify anything on here, so you can just start working with your undoing the plus 12 in this case by subtracting 12 from both sides. So show your steps in whichever way works best for you. If you want to print this and write them by hand, or just write it on your own piece of paper, or you can type your answers on here. I want to look at number 5 because this is one that a lot of people make a mistake on right away. So if we look at what we have, number 6, we have 5 minus 10w plus 8w equals 15. So I can see that these are the two like terms. The like terms are negative 10w plus 8w. So when we combine like terms, we need to look at the coefficients, the numbers in front, and negative 10 plus 8 is negative 2. That means that this is 5 minus 2w. A lot of people put plus 2w, or they add these and get 18w there. But this would be 5 minus 2w. So then when we start doing our steps, our next step is to figure out where's the variable. Well, it's right here, it's w. What's being done to the variable? It's being multiplied by negative 2, and then this 5 is really being added to it. They don't put a plus sign because it's a positive number. So our first step is to undo this plus 5, and we do that by subtracting 5 from both sides of the equation. When we do that, that negative in front of the 2w drops down with it. It's still part of my remaining equation on the left side here. So this is now negative 2w equals 15 minus 5 is 10. And I'm sure you can finish this. You'll divide both sides by a negative 2 to undo multiplying by negative 2. So we end up with w equals negative 5. And if you had made a mistake somewhere along the way, then you wouldn't get negative 5, and then when you would check it, it wouldn't work. So don't force your check to work. In this one, we would have 5 minus 10 times w, but w is negative 5. And then we have plus 8w, but again, w is negative 5. And then that is maybe, hopefully, equal to 15. But when you're checking, don't keep 15 in your mind and try to force this to equal 15, whether or not the numbers really get you there. So here we have a negative 10 times a negative 5. A negative times a negative is positive, so this would be positive 50. And then in the next part here, we have 8 times negative 5, which you could write plus negative 40, or you can just write minus 40. And again, I want to see, does that indeed equal 15? So 5 plus 50, we add and subtract in order, is 55 minus 40. So that is 15, so 15 equals 15. So it does check. And I did number 9 all worked out again, so you can look at the steps on that one to see how you do a similar problem. Now on number 10, you have to simplify both sides of the equation, but you'll find that on the left side, these are all like terms, and on the right side, 20 plus 10 is just 30. So this simplifies very quickly, and it is not going to be a very long one once you get that done. Now the bonus section below, you don't have to do this, but it's really good practice for future courses. So number 13 says that we have two angles, and one of them is 2x and one is 3x plus 5. So it turns out that you can add angles together, expressions for angles, just like you can add numbers together, and it says that their sum is 90. So your equation is just going to be 2x plus 3x plus 5 is going to be equal to their sum, which is 90. And then you can solve and find x. Once you find x, you can plug it back into each expression to find the measure of each angle. And there's another optional bonus section that you can try. This, you will have to know how to do this in Algebra 1. It's a little bit tricky. If you have fractions in your equation, you could just deal with them the way they are. I could say, well, here's the x. It's being divided by 4, and 2/3 is being added. So I could subtract 2/3 and so on and so forth. But a way to get a simpler equivalent expression is you can figure out what is the common denominator of all of the denominators. So in this one, it's 3 and 4. And it turns out that that is 12, because 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16. For 3, I'd have 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12. As soon as you find one in common, you stop and say, oh, my least common denominator is 12. So you take that number and you multiply both sides of the equation by 12. And we do that because then look what we have. We use the distributive property. We have 12 times x over 4 plus 12 times 2/3 equals 12 times 2. Right here, this one, 12 times x over 4, I could write that as 12x divided by 4, or 12x over 4, or I could cancel. So 4 goes into 4 one time, and 4 goes into 12 3 times. Everything in the denominator canceled, and I just have 3x. In the second part, I'd have 12, or 12 over 1, times 2/3. And the denominator of 3 will divide into the 12 4 times. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I'm just left with 4 times 2 is 8. So when you do this, you end up with no fractions. And then on the right side, 12 times 2 is 24. So you end up with this equivalent but simpler equation, and then you can finish solving that the way we've solved before. Now in this one, you get 16/3. You could change that to a decimal, or you can just leave it as 16/3. Checking with a fraction is a little bit difficult, and you may want to skip the check on a fraction, or you may want to change it to a decimal, or else you can go ahead and do it and just work through it, or use a calculator to help you with that. So there's a few problems to try if you want to practice that and make sure your skills for your next math class are all ready to go. Again, this is an optional part, the last couple pages of this, so if you want, you can stop at number 12, or you can continue on for an extra point or two on the rest of this worksheet. All right, thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.